You ever been deep in a great conversation with an AI, and then, all of a sudden, it completely forgets what you were just talking about? It is so frustrating, right? But what if I told you that's not a bug? It's actually a core part of how these things are designed. So let's pull back the curtain and demystify what's really going on inside the AI's mind.
I mean, this is the big question, isn't it? If we're going to rely on these AIs for, big, complex projects, we have to know their limits. And the answer is actually way simpler than you'd think, and it is the absolute key to getting the most out of them.
Oh man, we have all been here. You ask it to pull up a key detail from earlier, and you just get this blank stare. It feels like the AI is being stubborn, but what's really happening is that it's hit a wall, a fundamental, hard-coded limit on its attention span. And the secret to all this forgetfulness? Well, it all boils down to one simple concept: the context window. Seriously, once you get this, it's like finding the Rosetta Stone for understanding how an AI actually thinks and remembers. Okay, think of it like this. An AI doesn't have a big, sprawling, continuous memory like you and I do. Instead, it has this specific, fixed-size window of attention. It can only see and think about the information that fits inside that window at any one time. And this is really the best way to get it. It's not a hard drive storing everything you've ever said. Nope. It's more like the few thoughts you can hold in your conscious mind right now. It's temporary, it's limited, and it's constantly getting updated with new information. So how do we measure this memory space? Well, it's not in words or sentences, but in something called tokens. A token is the absolute basic building block an AI uses to read. It chops up everything, words, punctuation, you name it, into these little bite-sized pieces.
All right, let's make this real with a super simple example. Here's a sentence that you and I understand in a split second.
Now, here's where it gets kinda cool. To an AI, that's not 5 words. It's about 6 tokens. Check it out. Today gets split into to and day, and even the period at the end gets its own token. So an AI's entire context window is just the total number of these little tokens it can hold at once. Okay, so we know what the window is, and that it's measured in these things called tokens. Now let's see how this actually plays out in a real conversation. This is where you're going to have that aha moment and finally understand why those long chats sometimes go completely off the rails. So, imagine you're using an AI with, say, a 32,000 token window. You give it a massive document or have a super long back and forth that adds up to 50,000 tokens. Well, the AI literally can't hold all of that in its head. It works on what you'd call a first-in, first-out system. It keeps the most recent 32,000 tokens and just lets go of the oldest 18,000. And this is the critical part to understand, that old information isn't just filed away in a back corner, it is gone. As far as this specific conversation is concerned, it is vanished from the AI's short-term memory. It literally cannot see it anymore. So now that we get the mechanics, let's check out the current state of play. Because not all AIs are built the same, and the size of this context window is one of the biggest battlegrounds in AI development right now. Yeah, this chart really puts things in perspective. You've got absolute powerhouses like GPT-4 Turbo and Claude 3.5 Sonnet over here. But then look at Gemini 1.5 Pro. It completely dwarfs them with a mind-boggling 1 million token window. That's enough to read and analyze thousands of pages of text in a single prompt. It's just a different scale. And to really appreciate how wild this is, you gotta remember that just a couple of years ago, a 4,000 token limit was the best we had. The pace of this change is just unbelievable. And it means we are now officially in the era of long context AI, which is unlocking things we couldn't even dream of before. Okay, so armed with all this knowledge, how do we get better at actually talking to these things? Let's get into some real, practical tips for working with the context window instead of constantly fighting against it. But first, let's quickly clear something up that trips a lot of people up. The context window is temporary, short-term memory that only lasts for one chat session. That's totally different from the memory features some AIs have, where they can remember your name or preferences across different chats. We're just focused on that in-the-moment, short-term recall. All right, here are 3 super simple but incredibly powerful secrets. 1. Be concise. Every extra word you type is eating up that precious token space. 2. Summarize. If you're in a really long chat, just pause and give a quick summary. That pulls the most important stuff back into the window. And 3. Just remind it. Don't be shy. Say, hey, remember we talked about X? Now tell me about Y. You're basically helping it focus its limited attention where it matters.
This quote really nails it. The context window is both an AI's biggest weakness and its greatest strength. As these windows get bigger and bigger, the AI's ability to reason and create in ways we can't even imagine is just going to explode.
So the main takeaway here is this. Getting good at using AI isn't about learning a bunch of complicated technical hacks. It's really just about being a clear communicator who understands the rules of the game, that you're talking to an incredibly powerful tool that has a finite short-term memory. And that leaves us with one last kind of mind-bending thought. We've just been talking about the limits of an AI's short-term memory. But what happens when those limits vanish? What if an AI could remember everything, every conversation, every single piece of data perfectly forever? How would that fundamentally change our world? Something to chew on.